Hi, class. I'm sending you a quick message to talk a little bit about the upcoming assignment we have on the introduction for your first essay. So if you click on modules, go to week 3. Let's see if I can screen share. Share. Okay, go to modules, go to week 3. And if you see the assignment titled Feedback Intro Essay 1, I want to give you a couple of tips on how you can come at this assignment. So along with the directions on the assignment, I'm also giving you an opportunity that if you submit this assignment on time, I will guarantee that you have feedback. If you submit the assignment after the deadline, I can't guarantee that I'm going to give you feedback because I've already moved on, not just with this class, but with my other classes. So if you want feedback on the introduction for your first essay, it's important that you submit a rough draft by the due date. Along with submitting a rough draft by the due date, submitting 2 or 3 sentences doesn't give me enough material for me to give you feedback unless you're submitting your thesis statement. And we'll get to that in a minute. So we know that in order to structure an introduction, you need a hook, context, and a thesis. A hook is the opener. It opens your paper. So oftentimes students might open up their paper by applying it to something that's happening in the world today, applying the topic to something that's happening in the world today. Sometimes some students think a little bit more figuratively, and the claim that opens up the introduction will be more of something that captures the spirit of your paper. If that's too abstract, then don't worry about it. The thing that a hook cannot be, or the things that a hook cannot be, are you can't use a quote as a hook. You can't use a question as a hook. It has to be a claim, an original claim that comes from you, from your voice and perspective. What follows a hook is context. And so context is the stage, right? This is where you lay out your argument. Don't be surprised if in this essay, your introduction takes up the whole first page and maybe even a little bit of the second page. Because in context, you're going to lay out all the key players, all of the information, including the primary source that you're going to need to write this paper and for your reader to understand your argument. And then finally, it's your thesis, and the thesis answers the question explicitly. So if we're looking at this prompt, I'm asking you to use the work of bell hooks. Okay, I'm asking you to use this primary source to answer the following question, or to respond to the following quote. Marianne Williamson said, personal transformation can and does have global effects. As we go, so goes the world. For the world is us. The revolution that will save the world is ultimately a personal one. So in context, you would need to provide that quote. There shouldn't be any other quotes in context. This is the only quote that should be included in your context because this is what your paper is responding to. So you will need to actually look up who Marianne Williamson is so that you can introduce her in your introduction, so that you could give maybe some tiny bit of information and set up the quote. This is the question that you're answering in your paper. Using bell hooks is love as a practice of freedom. How would the author respond to the quote? Would she agree, disagree? What are the claims in Hooks's reading that lead you to your response? Now, remember, the previous assignment, I asked you to read Love as a Practice of Freedom. If you haven't been able to finish reading that from the beginning to end, I think it's like 5 pages from beginning to end. I would suggest that you do that because you're going to need to be able to identify quotes from the whole essay. Hooks builds her paper. So if you are only using claims from the beginning of her essay, you're only going to be able to talk to only a part of her argument. You won't be able to actually include the rest of it. So it's very important that if you haven't had an opportunity to finish the essay, that you take the time to do that. So essentially, in your context, you're going to have to lay out some information on Marianne Williamson. How do you understand her quote? And then transition into what Love as a Practice of Freedom said, what Bell Hooks said, and how would Bell Hooks respond to this quote? Now, you could switch it up. You could start with Bell Hooks and then put Marianne Williamson second. It's up to you. However you decide to design your argument, that's fine. I'm just kind of giving you some very basic information that needs to be included in your in the context of your introduction. So for those who need a refresher, the introduction is the first paragraph of an academic essay. So that's the first paragraph. The only thing that's due is the first paragraph of the academic essay. Now, I would say that the introduction is actually the most important, because once you lay out a solid foundation to your argument, all of your body paragraphs are basically just going to tie back, tie back, tie back. Your argument should be clearly defined and outlined and blueprinted in your introduction. The body paragraphs essentially support your argument in the introduction. They're there as support. The question that you're answering in your thesis, which is the third part of your introduction, is whether Bell Hooks would agree or disagree. And how do we know that? How do we know she would agree or disagree? The only way that you can know if you're making the right connections is if you can align some of the quotes that some of the claims that she makes in Love as a Practice of Freedom, if you can align those claims to this specific quote. So when I talk about alignment, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be the exact same thing, right? All you're looking at is at one quote from Marianne Williamson. We haven't seen a complete essay versus Bell Hooks. We're actually reading a whole paper she wrote. But you can use quotes not only that echo each other, that have some similarities, but I noticed that a lot of quotes also build on Marianne Williamson's argument. And so essentially, like, Bell Hooks will probably take it a step further because, again, there's more information in an essay than in just one quote. So when you're kind of aligning your claims to answer this question, they don't have to match identical, right? One claim can build on another. They just have to resonate. Now, if you agree, obviously the claims will connect and align with more similarity. If you disagree, then the claims will align in how they contradict each other. So that is up to you. You selecting the claims is up to you. Notice that in the second part of the tasks, I'm asking you what are the claims in Hooks's reading that lead you to your response. And this is why we did the previous assignment on claims. What that means is that all of your body paragraphs will be organized by claim. You'll still need to have a paragraph, format, but essentially what goes in as your evidence, as your quote for your body paragraph are going to be these claims that you've selected. I'm hoping that makes sense. Remember that this is just the introduction. It's only the first paragraph of your essay. If you want me to give you feedback, you need to submit it on time. I can't guarantee that I'll have time to give you feedback if you submit this particular assignment late. Now, let's say that things are getting a little bit overwhelming and for whatever reason, you can't get to the introduction by the due date. The assignment is only worth 5 points. And the reason why I made the points low was because I wanted to make sure that if you need that extra help, that you get it. But that if you don't need that extra help or if you can't complete the assignment on time, that you're not heavily penalized. So I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And also, just as a reminder, embedded into the assignment, I also have the lecture video that goes over paragraph format in case you need a refresher. Okay, I hope everybody is doing well. If you have anything that you want to ask me about this upcoming assignment, please go ahead and do that. I think that this week I'm going to be logging off on Friday, so you won't be able to reach me Saturday or Sunday. So it's important that if you have questions that you get those to me as soon as possible. Okay, good luck.